that was the trigger point in what I consider to be now a 30 plus year challenge of work addiction. I am not going to disappoint.
Working.
My own spiritual and physical health was so compromised because I was completely addicted to the pressure, the stress, the lifestyle. March 8th, to be exact, of 2004, I heard these words exactly, and it said, "This is just a job. You can leave it. I do not want to die at my desk."
Welcome back. Beate Chelette here with Traci DeForge from Produce Your Podcast. And today's show is going to be diving into a very delicate and infuriating topic that many of us women who are crushing it have to listen to. And Traci, my opening question, ever so subtle to you, is already starting with, how many times did you hear, "Who did she sleep with to get here?"
More times than I should have, for sure. Enough times that I started to let it roll off my back. But, working in a male-dominated industry and being a very young, like under 30 female at the time for the level of success and role that I was empowered with, it just, I started to believe it came with the territory.
Take us to this moment in your career. So now you're under 30, you're hot, you're sexy, you're crushing it, you're smart, people like you. What are you doing? Where are we?
Well, so radio was always a dream career for me. And I had the opportunity right out of college to go work for a broadcast company. And I started out on the sales side of the business, and things like that weren't nearly as politically correct as they are today, or aspire to be today. As an account executive, it was very important to me to always set integrity in terms of how I communicated about offers, how I talked to clients, male or female, about the benefits of the product that I was representing. And as I moved into management, which happened very quickly for me, so I became a general sales manager early in my mid-20s, and we would hire other females. And the types of recruiting that I was doing I looked at it through the lens of, if I hire a female, I want to be sure that she is going to show up in integrity. I wanted to mirror that as an example, and I didn't want salespeople on the streets acting like they were streetwalkers. So that was a line of integrity that was really important to me at the time. Fast forward, in just a short window of time, we're talking about from 1993 to 1996 or 7, like a 3 or 4 year period of time, I went from sales account executive, sales manager, general sales manager to the general manager of one radio station. But what's important to know is that the FCC deregulated the number of stations you could own in a market at that time. So the owners of our stations were media brokers. And as a result of that, it became a free-for-all in 97. And we went from 1 to 3 to 6 to 12 stations in a matter of a 6 to 8 month window of time. So they had just made me the general manager of this one rather small FM station in the market. And fast forward within a calendar year, they own 12 stations. So I am 30 at this point and taking on a tremendous amount of responsibility for not only my age and my experience. And that's kind of where we are to answer your question. That's the fast track story to how I got to that place. And then going forward, there were many other challenges and blessings. I mean, absolutely, I could not do what I do today if I hadn't navigated that experience, but it did not come without challenges.
So let's go there. So now you are 30 and you are on the fast track. I totally relate to this. I, certainly understand the environment you're in. I was in photography production, very similar in a way. You have to work hard. So we said that this show is really going to focus on also the sacrifices that you make. At that point in your working, tell me sort of what's your work style? How are you working? Are you working all the time? Are you making sacrifices? take me to the moment of where we are now heading toward the full-on breakdown. Like what comes before that?
Sure. Well, it's not a short story, but I'll do my best to be concise. So, and I want to say that there were some really marquee moments in this story, in that it wasn't all about gender situations, because the owner of there were three partners of the stations at that time. And one of the owners, when they gave me that position of general manager of the one station, and then they had that accelerated growth phase, I sat down with one of the owners and I said, hey, look, I understand you made me the general manager of this one station. Now the company's in a completely different place. If you want to make a different decision, I completely understand. Like, I was forthright in having that conversation. I'll never forget it as long as I live. In a positive way, he kind of kicked back and he said, you know what? Let's just give it a chance and see what happens. Since lots of therapy later, I have tracked back that was the trigger point in what I consider to be now a 30 plus year challenge of work addiction. Like, that to me is when it just like ramped up like nobody's business. Because I think there was a part of me that thought, okay, this guy's like, he's giving me a chance. I am not going to disappoint.
So it's like an opportunity that is dangled in front of you. And then in your head, you are having 1,000 things, right? You want to prove it to them that you can do it. You're excited. You see it's an opportunity. And then you put a bunch of things in motion. What are these things? Just working, working, working?
Yeah, so eat, breathing, and sleeping it, right? So there was no rule book in broadcast radio at this time for this level of consolidation. So you had to navigate, it was the wild, wild west. You had to navigate integrating sales teams, integrating air talent teams that were highly competitive against each other that now worked for and with each other. There were multiple geographies, multiple staffs, strategic partnerships. Like, it was the definition of baptism under fire. The only management experience I had was with that particular company for that very short window of time. I think for me, I've followed a lot of my intuition about what not to do. And I think that was something that was a really positive thing for me, self-reliant, of course, but at the same time, like, I really intuitively wanted to be a better leader than I had experienced in other situations in the past. So, but in terms of the amount of stress, so in 2001, the owner that I was mentioning, he tragically passed away of an aneurysm on 9/10 before 9/11. So, like, leading up to this point in time, I'd had sort of the off of the cuff comments in terms of like, oh, I've got ties older than you, like in the Rotary, for example, that I would go to conferences and I would attend with the program directors who were male. Most all of the air talent program director type management that worked for me were male. I would show up at these conferences and they would be like, dude, that's your boss? I would be like, hello, I'm standing right here. Like, I can hear you. And then there were does your dad own the radio station? Because I was young, but I looked even younger than I was. My voice sounds very young on the phone. And so, yeah, I mean, there were just all of these sort of just like external challenges, right? But internally,
I'm going to jump in here. Did you have to overcompensate for that? Or did you feel, or are you now looking backward, seeing that you had to overcompensate for some of these things?
I mean, 100%, I think internally I felt that way. I think that's what was driving, like, I'll prove you wrong, I'll prove you wrong. But I don't know, in that moment, I was conscious of it. I think in that moment, my default mechanism is humor. So I think that for me, I could be indignant, but I didn't really see that serving me well. So I would just I would typically default to making a joke of it or making light of it. I don't think I ever really, or what I do know for sure is I underestimated how much it impacted me in the pathway of striving for excellence and just overachieving. A lot of these were external factors that I was able to just sort of write off. But then there were internal things that, like, once that one owner passed, one of the partners separated himself out, the other owner died, and then there was just this one last owner who was left. And so from '01 to '04, it was incredibly difficult because that we were not in alignment in terms of how I was much more in alignment with the original two partners in terms of leadership and just all of the things that were important to me, how to show up as a leader. They weren't priorities as much as they were when all of them were collective. And so after the loss of that partner, and yeah, also having to understand like this was the biggest media event in the history of our lives at this point, and hopefully for forevermore. So we're navigating 12 stations of broadcasting, how to manage that piece of it while the towers are falling. And oh, by the way, I had to be the one to tell our entire staff that the owner of our radio station had also died. This was all happening at one time. It was just an absolute, it was so incredibly emotionally, physically, and spiritually.
I think the proper word for it sounds like a shitstorm if you really want
I
to.
was going to say that, but I wasn't, that
No,
Southern
I mean,
girl in me.
I already said a few words at the beginning of the show, which will make it explicit, which is
Okay,
fine,
great. Because that
which is fine by
professionally
me.
broadcast trained Southern girl in me was not going to say that. But yes, it was a complete unmanageable shit show. I'm not really sure I did, but I just wanted the audience to understand like it
Yes.
was so much more than anything I had control over. There were a tremendous amount of circumstances, but at the end of the day, what I did have control over that I lost control over was my personal ability to set boundaries, to be able to stand up for myself and to be able to speak my truth when things were happening that I did not agree with or didn't want my brand, my personal, well, I say brand now because I am my own brand, but at that time, I just didn't want my name associated with it because I always believe you get one reputation, that is it. If it gets taken down by your actions or others, like you get one reputation. So I was fighting for my life to save my own and keep my own integrity, and my own spiritual and physical health was so compromised because I was completely addicted to the pressure, the stress, the lifestyle. Not going to lie, the money was great. And so I was at this place in 2004, March 8th to be exact, of 2004, where I needed to make a very clear cut decision whether this was the lifestyle that I was leading that was causing me the challenges, or was it the work environment and the level of responsibility that I was trying to sustain success at. And that's when I had what I consider to be one of my very first spiritual experiences professionally, because I was coming back from a conference where it had just been a balls to the wall, record companies, all expenses, like debauchery you can only imagine. And I came back and was driving back without the radio on, without anything on, a 5-hour drive at the time. And I had a moment where I felt like I heard a voice, not like a crazy voice, but like in my heart, I heard these words exactly. And it said, "This is just a job. You can leave it." It's, like it was literally like an aha for me. Like, this is just a job. Like, you don't even have to show up tomorrow if you don't want to. It's just a job.
Let me jump in here because I want to clarify some things for our audience.
Sure, sure.
So a lot of people, that are listening to the show now are going, well, but isn't that what everybody tells you? In your 20s, you try to figure it out. In your 30s, you just work yourself to the bone. Hopefully by your 40s, you got something figured out, some money put aside. And then at your 50s, unfortunately, a lot of people get laid off at their 50s because they're too expensive. So did you have any awareness sort of on some of these previous patterns, or are you in this now and you're just in the mill and you don't think about, you just going. And then that's question number one. Question number two. So when you heard this voice, was that like that button was pushed and something else opened? Because I want to make it relatable to the audience that might be in a similar situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had some what I call pink flags. Like I was doing things like I was traveling overseas. And again, the technology you weren't as connected in technology then and at this point in time as you are now. I would travel with a passport to get away from the situation because I wasn't capable of setting my own boundaries in terms of how many, outreach and things like people staying connected to me. I had a first panic attack that I didn't even know what it was in the airport coming back from one of those trips that I had used to kind of escape from my reality. I was paying someone to go to the grocery store, walk my dog. I was single. I went through a divorce. The career caused me a divorce. I mean, I look back on that now, but very amicably stayed very soulfully connected to the person I was married to. But nonetheless, I made the choice to go for the career and the lifestyle versus staying married at the time. So there, yeah, I mean, there were pink flags, but did I connect the dots on them at that time? No, I did not. So for me, when I got that message that was like, this is just a job, that was like somebody might as well have just turned a light on inside my car, because I was like, what do you mean it's just a job? I mean, I had my very best friend sit me down at one point and say, your name is Tracy Long. Like when you introduce yourself as the market manager. My name is Tracy. Like it was all consuming in my life, to the point that my identity was completely blurred between the two. I had no separation of those all.
So with an identity now completely wrapped up in what you do you think people do this all the time? That this is, are we pushed by society into this? Are we making the choice ourselves, or is there simply no other choice?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to describe, but I think there's a fine line between crossing that line, right? You can be all in, you can be all 100% really like passionate about what it is that you do. But to me, it's when it crosses that line of like, I can't not work. So I took a 4-week leave of absence to try to sort this out. And I couldn't like not check my email. I had to, I would get up in the middle of the night. I was supposed to not be working, but I couldn't not check my email. I wasn't supposed to have any conversations with anyone, because the part of the thing that I figured out when I had that moment was I can use the Family Medical Leave Act and like just get my health back in check. Like that was the other thing, is like I was physically, mentally, spiritually like exhausted. Like I was not a good example to function for anyone. And I just think it's like, where is that line of crossing that line between being healthy and unhealthy? I lost sight of where that line was.
How did you turn the ship? So you now finding out that there's a whole bunch of stuff that you've created, your health, your mental health, your physical health, your relationship. Is this an awareness that gradually came up, or was it like you were hit with a frying pan?
Yeah, so I would have a tremendous sense of gratitude if that one moment in the car was my turning point. But on
Mhm.
March 8th, I took a 4-week leave of absence. On April the 8th, I resigned from my position. And on April 15th, my first husband that I referenced died of a massive coronary. So within 7 days of each other, everything that I had defined about myself was literally wiped out. And it was absolutely devastating.
So now we're in a trigger moment. And, at the time we're recording this, I literally, just got out of the hospital. I had to have emergency surgery. And that's how my 2026 started, completely unexpected. And I, I want to spend a moment of time on this, because when we are in these insane moments where we are on our knees. And one of my spiritual teachers, Marianne Williamson, she always says, like, God forces you on your knees and then you pray, please make me better. You get back up. And then eventually comes a point, just don't get up, just stay there. So when you're at this moment where you're literally on your knees and you cannot get up and you stay there, what did you do to get yourself back together? Or did you not even try? Or did you let it be? Did you surrender?
I feel like in that moment, I didn't know what to do. But what I did understand is one thing was very clear to me. The owner of that station that I respected so much died of an aneurysm at his desk at 3 p.m. My first husband that I adored and was an amazing person was under so much stress and pressure from a business that we had built together, that he was 53. He had no history of heart disease, and he died of a massive coronary, and it was completely unexpected. What I took away from that was, I do not want to die at my desk or as a result of my work. Like that, like no matter what, that was like, I don't want that to be how my story ends. And I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but that was like the biggest moment.
Yeah, it does, Tracy, because I'm thinking about this, and I'm now going to shift over to what you're doing today, producing a podcast which is all about amplifying a voice. So, because there is with certainty to me a clear correlation between you not having a voice, you watching how other people that didn't listen, whose voice is taken away from them by death, and now are you in the awareness you need to find your own voice? And how do you turn that into this business?
Yes. So before Producer Podcast ever existed, the reason that I wanted to start a podcast, and I did start that podcast, and it's called Journey to There, and it's all about the intersection between personal and business growth. I had no intentions of starting a full scale podcast production agency. I just pulled a broadcast quality team together to launch my own because I'd worked in radio so long. I knew what it was going to take to do what I wanted to do. That was my time, and I launched on March 8th of 2016, which was the same date that same date, anniversary date of when I walked out of the radio station. So there was no coincidence. That was a time where I thought I was going to share this story that we're talking about now, that I was going to make a difference, that I was going to use my voice to change other people's lives and make impact. But I did not give myself that chance. I never hosted it by myself for the first 100 episodes. I lacked the courage to stand in my own power, and I brought in a male co-host that I had worked with in the broadcast radio industry. After 100 episodes, I thought, okay, I want to do this on my own. But as soon as we launched Journey to There, March 8th, we swiftly, right after that, started producing shows for other businesses, and I was off to the races again. 10 years later, still amplifying other people's voices before my own, even to the point that I was on the fence as to whether or not I even wanted to do this interview. But I don't believe in coincidences. And so when we had our first meeting together, I said yes, because I felt like there's a lesson in this that I need to learn, and I need to get back to the roots of sharing my story more than just how does podcasting work for your business. I have a lot of opportunities to grow and learn that I can share from. So
I so appreciate that you say that, because our pre-interview started off a little bit bumpy, and I remember that. But what I also remember is that once we really talked about what the premise of the show is, and the reason I love this show and doing this show so much is that I always feel there's so much of this hustle, and then I did this, and turning point, transformation story, hero, and here I am, look at me now, and here are my services. But I find that in the messy middle, there just isn't enough where we really talk about how brutally hard it is to pick yourself up and to openly share the stories. I had a pre-call interview yesterday, and the woman was not ready to talk about what it actually was, the thing that initiated the trigger. And that's not a fit for the show, because we can't hint on it but not get our hands dirty. So I appreciate that about you, that you were able, once you saw that, to really say, well, if I'm called to do this when we're at a similar age and we have some similarities in our career patterns, to really talk openly about this, because I think this is where our service and our impact is, to say, yes, this is what happened. This is what you're going to be inclined to do. But here are some of the things that happened to us. Maybe you can turn earlier here and not go down that road until it grabs you so hard and slaps you down on the cement and people are dying. So I just want to tell you that I appreciate that about sort of how we came to it, and these honest conversations in podcasting, or between two people, creates the fabric, the richness that I think we are all looking for at this time. So now, talk to me about, what are you doing now? So what does a production company for podcasts actually do?
well, we are a full service podcast, audio, video production, marketing, audience growth company. That's the textbook tagline. But what I feel like that we do is that we give people an opportunity to change a conversation truly with their voice. And what I mean by that is that you can grow your business with a podcast, you can monetize your business with a podcast, but it's conversations like this that make impact and change conversations. And I have been, throughout this entire 10 years, I have had the opportunity to produce shows, business branded shows and otherwise, that I feel like the impact or the ripple effect I will never know. But what I do know is that they have had that. And that's why I believe so strongly in this medium. And I also believe that you should be able to achieve and receive the best quality production that you can or choose to invest in, because the better it sounds and the better it looks, the more likely people are going to stay with you and be able to share it and like it and things like that. And gratefully, the industry has created a lot of technology that has made that bar a lot more accessible than it was 10 years ago. But we've always just stood by the fact that whatever we can do in a very high touch, white glove way that keeps you showing up to this microphone and sharing your story is what we will do. And so that's why we've grown from audio to audio and video, added in guest booking services, added in audience growth, added in video campaigns, brand partnerships, all of those things, because it's not just one thing that keeps a show sustainable and successful. It's all of the things. And so the ecosystem is designed to support people so that they can keep having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, and I will say that the conversation is not about just getting people on air. It is about a
Right.
conversation that's meaningful. We want people to have 30 minutes that they spend with us that they feel is a valuable conversation, and the technology does matter because it is also the quality of the conversation. So I'm grateful for people like you that help more people to hone their message and sort of get that message out there. So for anybody wanting to know where to find you, where will we send them?
Producerpodcast.com is the absolute best way to connect. It's the way that you can, see some of our shows. If you're watching this on video, you see a sampling of some of the cover arts behind me. If you're listening to it, there's a portfolio of all the types of podcasters that we've worked with over the years. There's resources, blogs, and there's an opportunity if you want to reach out and just connect with me personally. Producerpodcast.com is absolutely the best way to do that.
Thank you. And for someone now who's listened to this and said, well, good for her that she got herself out of it, but I'm on my knees right now. Would there be a piece of advice you have for them?
I would say what I really want to hone in on is if there's anybody who maybe never thought about the fact that work addiction could be something that was real, or maybe they thought, this feels crazy. Like I'm addicted to my business or my work like I would be food or alcohol or drugs. I just want to acknowledge and empower you to believe that, yes, it is very real. And I often say to people, work addiction will bring you accolades, not intervention. And so in a lot of ways, you have to check yourself and be able to really figure out a pathway forward for you where you can strive for. I don't believe it's the balance. I believe it's the intersection between personal and business growth so that you can really keep your mental and physical and spiritual well-being in check. This has nothing to do with your bank account. This has to do with how you're choosing to spend your time and live your life. And what are you sacrificing to do that if it's all for your business?
Truer words could have not been spoken. I'm certainly still learning that myself. That is, like you, my go-to. And it is a lifelong ministry to not fall back into those same patterns. Traci, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And that is it for us for today. So if you know somebody who suffers from serious workaholism, or you might be one of them, please, do take the time to listen to this episode, perhaps one more time, or share it with somebody who needs to hear what we said today. And as always, we are incredibly grateful that you're here, that you're giving us your time and attention. And we can't wait to see you again next time. And until then, and goodbye. That's it for this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, Founders of the Future. If you're done playing small and ready to build the future on your terms, subscribe, share, and help us reach more trailblazers like you. And if you're serious about creating, growing, and scaling a business that's aligned with who you are, schedule your Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com. Lead with vision. Move with purpose. Create your future.